What is up, everybody out there in podcast land? Welcome to the latest episode of Sports Frenzy 2.0. I am your host, the Maestro, Kevin Crane, flying solo this week as the Conquistador takes a well-deserved vacation celebrating his anniversary with Mrs. C, of course, another one of our Sports Frenzy panel members. But do not fret, do not fear, do not worry. Plenty to talk about with Uncle Kev. And we're going to start off with baseball. How about the Chicago Cubs? Just when you and I had left them for dead, 10-2 in their last dozen games, 36-38. Third place in the now topsy-turvy, wild as all get out NL Central. They're in third place, 3.5 behind. Yes, I am going to say these words. I can't believe it either. 3.5 behind the first place Cincinnati Reds. As hot as the Cubs have been, the Reds have been even hotter. The Reds today just won their 11th game in a row, as I mentioned, helping them to ascend to the top of the mediocre NL Central. So why not? Why can't the Reds win the division and get into the playoffs? Joey Votto just came back. Probably gave him a little bit of a morale boost, a little bit of that veteran presence in the clubhouse. All the young guys they're bringing up from the minors, sparking this team. Even though they're in the same division as my Cubbies, I am glad that it's the Cardinals in last place, Cubs playing well, and the Reds, a young team with a small payroll, doing some damage. But of course, as we look at the Cubs' success, we have to look at the failure of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Of course, you guys remember about a month ago we were talking about, the Pittsburgh Pirates are a small market team that's got a limited budget. And look how well they're playing. Remember, they flirted briefly with being in first place in the NL Central. Well, guess what? The Pirates are who we thought they were. The Pirates are in the middle of a 9-game losing streak, fading fast. As much as I hate to say it, outside of the Tampa Bay Rays, this is not sustainable. Again, I'm rooting for the Reds. It's not sustainable. Now, of course, the Cubs go overseas to London, jolly old England, to face off against their bitter arch rivals, the St. Louis Cardinals, the aforementioned last place St. Louis Cardinals. So you know what that means. Cubs will probably get swept. That's how much faith I have in David Ross. I'll tell you who I have faith in. This pitching rotation, this starting pitching rotation for the Cubs, now with Kyle Hendricks, the professor, back. There are haters out there, and you know who you are. People who are friends of mine, doubting Kyle Hendricks coming back after nearly a year off from a shoulder strain. The last 3 starts, he has been incredible. And you pair him with who could be one of the leading contenders for the NL Cy Young in Marcus Stroman. You have got a powerful 1-2 punch at the top of the Cubs rotation. Drew Smyly is pitching well. Steele is back off his stint on the injured list. We can only hope if Jameson Taillon can start living up to the big money contract he got. It's all on the offense. Can the offense turn it up a notch. Of course, Christopher Morel gave him a jolt when he was brought up from the minors, and it's ridiculous that, of course, he wasn't on the opening day roster from the get-go, from the start. The kid's already almost got the Cubs' home run lead after not being able to play the first month and a half of the season as he was wallowing down in the minor leagues for no good reason other than, again, possibly manipulating service time. I don't even think that's legitimate because he played last year, so the service time clock has already started on Morel. This isn't another Chris Bryant situation. There's just no legitimate reason why the Cubs did not have Christopher Morel on the opening day roster this year. Who knows how many more games they would have won if that kid had been in the lineup. But I digress. The Cubs have issues in the bullpen, and it's going to be their Achilles heel. It's going to be their downfall. But maybe we get a team that finishes a few games above 500. A lot of payroll will be dropping off after the 2023 season, including, of course, the anchor that is now playing for the Los Angeles Dodgers, otherwise known as Jason Hayward. He'll drop off. Cody Bellinger, if they don't re-sign him, he drops off. Unfortunately, if they don't re-sign him, the professor will also drop off, which brings up an interesting conundrum. The Cubs, last year, before the shoulder issue, wanted to desperately trade Kyle Hendricks to a contender. The injury, of course, prevented that. So now this year, they're almost stuck in a minor version of what the Angels are going through with Shohei Ohtani. The Angels actually playing the best baseball they've played in years, contending for the playoffs. Front office cannot really shop Shohei Ohtani right now. How would that look if they traded him, if they were only a game or two out of a playoff spot? Same thing with the Cubs now with Kyle Hendricks. If the Cubs continue to win here over the next month, in this weak NL Central, and they stay within 3-4 games of the leader, whoever it might be, can you really, in good faith, trade Kyle Hendricks? I don't think you can. I think you got to add, not subtract. And again, you are going to be freeing up a lot of payroll in the offseason with a lot of these contracts dropping off the books. And this is still including the fact you've got Dansby Swanson on a big deal. You've got Seiya Suzuki on a big deal. You're probably going to have to offer Marcus Stroman $25 to $30 million a year minimum to keep him. But you're still going to have room in the budget. And it's all about the Ricketts. Are they going to cheap out again? Or are they finally going to start to grow this team? Time will tell. Of course, Dave's not here. I will give you a quick rundown of the Chicago White Sox, the Southsiders. Just still can't put it together. 32-43 as we tape. Fourth place, but again, another mediocre division. Probably even worse. Is it possible? Probably even worse than the NL Central, the AL Central. Not a single team right now above 500. So that means even the 32-43 White Sox in fourth place are only, get this, kids, 4.5 games out of first place. It's going to boil down to, outside of the Royals, because they are just abysmal, the other 4 teams, whoever gets hot is going to win that division. Speaking of hot, another team streaking, the San Francisco Giants. They're on a 9-game winning streak. They have pushed into the playoff picture. They have passed the Dodgers in the NL West. The Diamondbacks, of course, still in first place. In that same division on the flip side, though, the miserable Colorado Rockies are in the middle of an 8-game losing streak. Yes, today we are going streaking, kids. Speaking of streaking, in a way, how about the Miami Marlins' Luis Arraez? Acquired in the offseason from the Minnesota Twins. Twins wanted pitching. They acquire Pablo Lopez from the Marlins. The Marlins get American League batting champion Luis Arraez. And all Luis Arraez is doing right now is flirting with 400. Just dipped a little bit under 400 in today's game. He is at 398 through Wednesday, June the 21st. Pretty impressive. The guy has had, I believe, 3 5-hit games over the last 2 or 3 weeks. This will be fun. Hopefully he can keep this up. And the Marlins are playing great baseball right now. Former Cub Jorge Soler up near the top in Major League Baseball in home runs. And this is all, okay, this is incredible to me because it's destroying one of my fantasy baseball teams. Reigning Cy Young Award winner in the National League, Sandy Alcantara, is having a miserable, awful season. Yet somehow the Marlins are playing great baseball despite this. I mean, it's ridiculous. So that's got to give Marlins fans hope, believe it or not. With as well as this team is playing, and their ace pitcher, just a dumpster fire. If he gets it turned around somehow, the Marlins are going to make the playoffs, kids. They are. The Mets are miserable. You're not getting a wild card out of the Central. So it's probably going to be at least 2 teams in the East, 2 teams in the West, and then that third and final wild card is either going to be the Giants, the Padres, the Phillies, the Marlins fighting it out there for those last few wild card spots. All right, we talked about this in our dumbass segment recently. So, idiocy begets idiocy. I believe that's something from the Bible. Oh, speaking of the Bible, Catholics for Catholics staged a protest outside Chavez Ravine, Dodger Stadium, as the Dodgers celebrated Pride Night in a nearly empty stadium an hour before first pitch for those moronic sisters of perpetual stupidity, or whatever their names are. The fact that this country has degraded to the point where we have to have these type of protests over this type of stupidity, it's just a massive Jenga pile of asinine, moron stupidity. This is interesting. Would you decline an invitation if you were invited to join the Hall of Fame for your work, for your profession, for your office? I know this is a different scale, a different way of thinking compared to what I'm going to address here, but still, that's the only way you're really going to be able to wrap your head around this. David Freese, who was a hero for the St. Louis Cardinals when they won their last World Series a little over a decade ago, declined his nomination, his possible induction into the St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame. Didn't really give a great reason why or why not, just kind of blathered and rambled on. Why would he decline an invitation to the Cardinals Hall of Fame? Your guess as good as mine. Borderline thought about putting him in with the dumbasses of the week, but I have got so many. We'll just address it here. Then finally, a nice move by Major League Baseball as we wrap up our baseball segment. They have announced that on June 20th, 2024, the Cardinals, the aforementioned Cardinals, will be involved in a game at Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama. This is going to be a celebration of Juneteenth. This is also going to be a celebration of the legacy of the great Willie Mays, because Rickwood Field is where he became a star for the first time before exploding on the national scene in Major League Baseball. All right, so let us move on to the NFL. Even though it's the off season, even though the NFL claims to be a 12-month sport now, there are some down times. Only got one headline in the NFL this week, but it's interesting. And it's a shame Dave's not here because this involves one of his two teams. The Miami Dolphins, Tyreek Hill, stud wide receiver for the Dolphins, is being investigated for assault and battery. Supposedly hit a charter employee down in Miami at a marina down there. I've never been a fan of Tyreek Hill. If you guys remember, there were issues with him when he was in Kansas City. Child abuse allegations, I believe. He's another arrogant prima donna wide receiver. I guess the best I can say here is that at least this doesn't involve a child. We shall see what happens. I have a feeling nothing, but we will keep an eye on this for you. Moving from professional football to professional basketball. Next week, we will have a recap of tomorrow night's NBA draft, June 22nd. We all know who's going number one. The phenom from France going to the luckiest man in the world, also one of the biggest assholes in the world, Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs. What'll be interesting is the movement after the number one pick. And again, we'll have a full recap for you next Wednesday. But some of the moves that have happened, some of the moves that are being rumored to possibly happen in the next 24 hours. Of course, everybody by now knows Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards has been shipped out to the Phoenix Suns, who now have not a big 2, not a big 3, but a big 4. If you look at Beal, Kevin Durant, Booker, and Ayton. Now, will they keep all 4 of them together? Because that is a massive amount of money on their salary cap. There will be penalties. There will be luxury tax issues. Rumors are saying that DeAndre Ayton could be shipped out at some point to make things a little more feasible financially for the new owner of the Phoenix Suns. Also out there for the taking, Draymond Green declines his player option. He is now a free agent. I can't see him playing for anybody else but Golden State, but who knows? News broke today that the Celtics, I find this very odd. The Celtics want to acquire Kristaps Porzingis in a potential 3-team deal. Of course, Porzingis would come over from the Wizards, who are in full tankathon mode. The Wizards are going to be awful. Here's my question. Do you realize you're doing this a year too late? Who is out there next year? Who's out there? You don't have the big, massive French superstar like you do this year. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If they want to rebuild, fine. But boy, they are just going nuclear. And as far as the Celtics go, why do you want to bring in Kristaps Porzingis? I know he's been playing fairly well over the last couple years, but he was a massive headache for the New York Knicks, who drafted him. Another guy with issues. The Celtics, so much potential, and the window is starting to close. Now, does this mean they're going to trade another one of their star young players, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum? We shall see. New general manager for the Golden State Warriors. We just mentioned he's going to have to make a decision here right off the bat about negotiations with Draymond Green, but the new Golden State general manager is Mike Dunleavy Jr. Could have told you this was going to happen. The pathetic, weak, spineless commissioner, after talking tough. Have you seen the guy? He's talking tough. Ha! Adam Silver comes up with a really hard-hitting, massive 25-game ban, suspension for Ja Morant for his reckless conduct. This tells you, again, the inmates are running the asylum. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, this is pretty punitive. This is pretty severe. It is less than a third of the season. It is less than a third of the season for a guy who is not listening, who got in trouble for this before and went out and did it again. Yes, we can say he didn't break any rules. But again, the employer sets the boundaries. The employer sets the rules. And once again, Adam Silver proves to be a terrible, weak commissioner. This should have been at least 41 games, if not 50 games. Half a season, if not more. Pathetic. Pathetic showing by Adam Silver. Pathetic. So let's look back at better times in the NBA as we close out our first segment here on Sports Frenzy 2.0 for June the 21st, 2023. Let's talk a little Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time. Are you listening, LeBron? First up, Michael Jordan's flu game shoes. Of course, we all remember that. Turned out later, Michael Jordan said it was food poisoning, not the flu. but his tremendous performance in a game where he was sick as a dog. Those shoes sold at auction for $1.38 million. And it's not like he needed the money. Although I know this was sold by somebody he had given the shoes to. It's a really great story. Look it up sometime. Gave him to an attendant, I believe it was, for the Utah Jazz because the kid treated him so well and brought him snacks and liquid refreshment, whatever he needed to get him through his illness. And he ended up giving the shoes to this kid. Now this guy ended up selling them, and they've passed through a couple of people. So, okay, Michael Jordan's not getting the money. But you know where he is getting the money? From selling his majority stake in the Charlotte Hornets. Michael Jordan will still retain some semblance of influence with a minority stake, but selling his majority share in the Charlotte Hornets should net him somewhere in the area of, $1.5 billion. Yeah, I want to be like Mike, especially when it comes to the bank account. All right, kids, that is going to do it. Segment 1 here, Sports Frenzy 2.0, is over. Fini. But we're coming right back. We have got NASCAR after a week off. The Cup guys are back racing in Nashville. We'll also talk about the U.S. Open. And then in segment 3, of course, a potpourri, a plethora of dumbasses. So hang out with me, won't you, for a little while longer. Quick promo break, and I'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Patrick, not Pat, Mahomes, Super Bowl champion and MVP. And when I'm not trying to keep my wife and brother in line, I'm listening to Sports Frenzy on Spotify, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Stitcher, Amazon, and Audible. Brittany, come on, stop posting on Twitter. Jackson, will you please get off TikTok? Man, it's times like these I really miss doing stupid, silly State Farm ads with Coach Reed.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Flying solo this week, the Maestro, Kevin Crane, Sports Frenzy 2.0. Episode 25 of 2023, taping here on June the 21st, 2023. I will do my best here. This is usually the conquistador's gig. But this is the time in each and every episode where we let you know where you can listen to every episode of Sports Frenzy 2.0. We are available on Spotify, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and of course, Stitcher! Just not as good without Dave. Don't forget to check out the Facebook page. NASCAR picks posted each and every week. Baseball picks posted each and every week. And in the fall, football picks posted each and every week. Of course, along with links to every episode of Sports Frenzy 2.0, including your weekend hangover cure. Every Saturday morning, Dave and I look at the best and the worst in pop culture, music, movies, TV, and streaming. And yes, of course, there are dumbasses there too. The weekend edition, every Saturday morning. Let us get into NASCAR. Just talked about how we post our picks on the Facebook page. NASCAR had the week off for Father's Day, which I still do not understand. I just don't get it. Father's Day. Fathers are the ones that are going to want to watch a race on Father's Day. No, they want to spend time with their family. You obviously have never been in a marriage or a relationship or had kids. But they're back, and unfortunately, the Fox coverage is done. NBC takes over now with race 17 going forward all the way through the playoffs. Speaking of Fox, the final numbers came out for their entire coverage for the 2023 season, their segment, their portion of it. Now, the story I saw said Fox ratings for the Cup Series declined slightly. Then they go on to say they were down 10% from 2022. That is not, to me, slight. 1 out of every 10 members of your audience from 2022 dropped out. That's pretty significant to me, especially with a new rights deal on the horizon. Will a streaming service get involved because they've got the money? Can we get rid of NBC, please, for the love of God? Can we please get rid of NBC? Now it's official. We talked about this a few months ago. Josh Berry will drive the number 4 car in 2024. Yes, that is Kevin Harvick's car for Stewart-Haas Racing. We all know Kevin Harvick is retiring, going into the Fox booth. So there, at least you have to keep Fox around, right? You just brought Kevin Harvick up to the booth for next year. He and Boyer, Kevin Harvick, Clint Boyer, will be great along with Mike Joy. Again, Fox is the king of NASCAR coverage. Josh Berry, once again, will take on the mantle with the number 4 car. I mean, Stewart-Haas Racing right now does not have an impressive lineup. I'm sorry. Chase Briscoe is the best driver they're going to have next year. Josh Berry, Eric Almirola, come on. Ryan Preece, come on. Wow. How the mighty have fallen. Remember when they had Tony Stewart, Kevin Harvick, Clint Boyer? Remember that? Well, Joe Gibbs Racing got a little help. And isn't it interesting that, conspiracy theory alert, Joe Gibbs, former head coach of the Washington Redskins, is getting some money infused into Joe Gibbs Racing from a company called Harris Blitzer, featuring one Josh Harris at the forefront, who just happens to be the potential new owner of the Washington Commanders. Isn't that convenient? For all you gamers out there, a new video game hitting most platforms later this year, NASCAR Arcade Rush. Looks like a crazy, nutsy, cuckoo version of NASCAR racing. Kind of looks more like Hot Wheels from what I saw than a traditional, normal type racing game. If it's fun, who cares? Go for it. If it keeps NASCAR's name out there, that's all they can do. That's all they can hope for. And finally, before we move on to this week's NASCAR race, a little bit of F1 news for you. Boring F1 news. Hey, Canadian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen led every lap. And I know people who like F1, and I don't get it. I don't get it at all. It's boring for this exact reason. It's not like NASCAR where you're going to get potentially 12 or 13 drivers win in the regular season before you get to the playoffs. Usually 1, 2, maybe 3 drivers dominate in F1. Boring. All right, let's talk about race 17 in the NASCAR Cup Series. Noah Gragson is back after a couple weeks off from being concussed. But he is not going to factor in, of course, because he is not a top-level driver, sorry to say. In the Ally 400 in Nashville, June the 25th, 2023, night race. A Sunday night race. Kind of stupid, again, in my humble opinion. You can have a night race on a Sunday night when everybody has got to work the next day. This would have been so much better next weekend. But of course, we know 4th of July weekend, you can't mess with the schedule that way. I get it, but still. Why a night race on a Sunday night when everybody's got to go to work the next day? Oh well. We'll see what the ratings are for NBC on their first race in their 2023 coverage season. But what we care about are the picks from our 8 panelists as we compete for the prestigious Frenzy Cup. And I have all 8 panelists' picks in. How about that? Nice little mix bag. We'll start off with the odds-on favorite from what I've seen. The Conquistador, Dave Height. And of course, Aaron, the Big Easy. They are going with Kyle Larson. Our leader in the Frenzy Cup, Sam the Elder Statesman. Taking Ross Chastain, he is joined by Nick, the Juggler. Jen, Mrs. C. Height, of course, celebrating that anniversary with her husband. She is joining Doug, the Governor. They are picking Chase Elliott. I am going with Denny Hamlin. The Toyotas ran really well last year at Nashville. I know some Chevys did too, but Martin Truex and Denny Hamlin dominated the first 2 segments. And it took all my willpower to not go with the nuclear hot Martin Truex Jr., but I want to save my last Truex pick for later on in the regular season. I've got two left. Now one with Denny Hamlin after taking him for Nashville. And then finally, thoughts and prayers to our recuperating head of Sports Frenzy West outside of Chicago, our franchise, the man, the myth, the legend, the Big Blue W. He's recovering from a health issue. Again, thoughts and prayers to my man, Bill. His pick for Nashville and the Ally 400 is Kyle Busch. All right, moving on from NASCAR and racing this week. One headline in college basketball to discuss. Penny Hardaway, head coach of Memphis. We've heard rumblings, rumors, investigations going on around Memphis. Again, I don't know how significant this is. This doesn't sound like much more than a slap on the wrist, but because of recruiting violations, Penny Hardaway gets a 3-game ban from coaching down in Memphis. Moving from college basketball to college football. Even though they do not officially have a destination yet, San Diego State has notified the Mountain West Conference of their intention to leave. And if you have been paying attention at all to the shifting in the landscape of college football, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion San Diego State will probably be joining the Pac-12 or Pac-10 or Pac-8 or whatever they end up being once USC leaves. Of course, taking UCLA with them. Is Oregon staying? Are they leaving? Colorado, are they staying? Are they leaving? Who knows? But San Diego State probably is looking to join the Pac-12. And you want to talk about arrogance? The SEC knows they are the kings. The SEC knows they are the cock of the walk, the top notch, the top level of college football. Why do I say this? Because they have already announced not their 2023 schedule. They have announced their 2024 opponents' schedule, meaning that now all teams, including the incoming Texas Longhorns and Oklahoma Sooners, already know who they will be playing in 2024. They just don't know when or where. Gotta love the SEC. A little bit of sarcasm. Please note that. All right, in golf news, of course, we have seen another major come and go. The U.S. Open played this year at the LA Country Club. Did not like this. Did not like this tournament at all. I did not think the course itself was all that great. It was kind of funky, kind of weird. Scores were way, way down on Thursday, and then all of a sudden the course became unbelievably difficult Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But the worst part of it was, of course, the West Coast has to be pandered to. The final round on Sunday did not end until roughly 10 o'clock East Coast time. Who's watching golf at 10 o'clock at night? It's just weird. It's just bizarre. It doesn't work. You got to wrap these tournaments up at the latest by 6 or 7 on a Sunday evening. But it's the West Coast. We got to kiss the West Coast ass. Can't wait to see the TV ratings on this. Plus, it was boring. I'm not trying to take anything away from Wyndham Clark, who ended up winning with a 10 under, beating Rory McIlroy. Old Rory, poor Rory, couldn't quite get over the hump. Yet again, 9 under, sloppy seconds for Rory. So congratulations to Wyndham Clark. But the problem with the final round was, even though it was basically a stroke, that's how it stayed the entire second half. The back 9 of the final round. Par, 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 par. Boring. Boring. But again, you cannot take anything away from Wyndham Clark. But I mentioned earlier, how do Ricky Fowler and Xander Schauffele post 8 underscores on Thursday? Yes, Ricky Fowler and Xander Schauffele were both 8 under after one round, record-setting rounds from a U.S. Open. Both Friday, Saturday, Sunday combined to finish over par those 3 days. Wyndham Clark wins it at 10 under. Just 2 strokes better over the next 3 days, if you look at it that way. Major opportunity missed for both Fowler and Schauffele to win their first majors. We were talking about ratings for NASCAR. And I've alluded to, of course, the ratings I want to see for the U.S. Open, given the West Coast time difference. I'm not going to bore you with the numbers, but even though we heard bragging throughout the playoffs, the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, oh, record series ratings here for TNT, record series ratings here for TBS. Well, then explain to me how I see here this past week. The report comes out for the entire NBA playoffs and for the entire Stanley Cup playoffs. Record low ratings for both. I still want to know how these streaming services, how these networks justify the money they're putting into sports when they get record low ratings outside, of course, of the NFL. Speaking of the NFL, Amazon, of course, now a player when it comes to the NFL with Thursday Night Football. And, of course, the flex option now. Because Al Michaels bitched and pissed and moaned and cried and whined after a very mediocre first season slate of games for Amazon's Thursday Night Football. So now they're going to get flexed in towards the end of the season, some better games, supposedly. Well, now Amazon wants to go further. Amazon wants to turn Black Friday into the new NFL holiday. So they're talking about not only games on Thanksgiving, they want to put games or a game on Black Friday. Basically spreading out the entire NFL slate over Thanksgiving weekend through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We will see how this plays out. And then finally here, wrapping up segment 2, on a personal note. You guys know I talk about how I listen to a lot of New York sports radio. Of course, the wonder of cable sports networks and an app like Odyssey where I can tune into any major city's premier flagship sports network. Awesome. It's wonderful. One of the few times that I will laud and praise technology. Well, of course, over the years, I have become a big fan of a lot of the people on WFAN out of New York. And one of those most preeminent, most recognizable personalities, Craig Carton, is leaving WFAN. Of course, if you haven't seen the documentary on Max, I believe it's still on there. I believe it's called Loudmouth, which describes in detail his fall from grace. He was on the morning show at WFAN and, of course, simulcast on CBS Sports Network, along with Boomer Esiason, who is now paired with Greg Giannotti. Craig Carton got wrapped up in a Ponzi scheme of sorts, a pyramid scheme, because of his gambling, a way to make money so he could continue to gamble. He got nailed by the feds and went to jail, I believe for 2 years, give or take. Welcome back by WFAN with open arms, paired with Evan Roberts in the afternoon in the evening drive time show. Successful as you would imagine. He is very funny, very dynamic, sometimes does things that I'm not a big fan of, but for the most part, he's entertaining. Of course, now has a morning show on FS1 for Fox. His sidekick is Cody Decker. It's a decent show. I don't mind it. I'll flip back and forth between that and Boomer and Geo. But he couldn't burn the candle at both ends, so Craig Carton is leaving WFAN to focus on his show on FS1. Now, I will say this, the one thing about his FS1 show that I find hysterically ridiculous, we're talking about Fox here. FS1, of course, carries NASCAR. Fox, big into the NFL, big into baseball. The show seems to focus on basketball. Fox doesn't have a share, a say, a care in the world about the NBA. Yet Craig Carton's show on FS1, again, owned by Fox, all they want to talk about is the NBA. I find that ridiculous. Doesn't anybody at Fox Sports have the balls to go to him and say, hey, you realize we don't have a stake in the NBA? You're touting and talking about a sport that other cable networks and other networks are making money on, not us. Talk about baseball a little bit. How about that? Talk about NASCAR a little bit. I know he doesn't want to. We will see how this plays out for Mr. Craig Carton on FS1. All the best to him. My man Sal Licata, my favorite voice on WFAN, who gets me through the night when I wake up. I've got bouts of insomnia, so I get up at 2, 3 in the morning and flip on WFAN on Odyssey, and I used to be able to listen to Sal Licata scream and rant and rave about the Mets and yell at the listeners. Unfortunately, now he is moving to the midday shift with who I consider to be a jackass, Brandon Tierney. Tiki Barber moves to the slot in the afternoon and evening to share the show with Evan Roberts, and Boomer and Gio stay intact. Yes, I know, a lot of information about New York sports radio and New York sports media that people in the Midwest, where we tape this podcast, probably don't give a rat's ass about. But I will say this, and I've told Dave this. Dave listens to the Score out of Chicago. I hate the Score, and I'm a Chicago sports fan. I'm a fan of the Bears. I'm a fan of the Cubs. He's a fan of the Blackhawks and the White Sox and the Bears. The Score is pathetic. The Score is pathetic compared to the personalities, the humor, the fun you get out of WFAN out of New York. And I hate New York sports, but these guys make it interesting and fun. Meanwhile, on the Score in Chicago, you've got the most pretentious a-hole on the face of the earth in Dan Bernstein. No thanks. All right, anyway, thank you for letting me go on a rant, go on a tangent there for a few minutes. We have one final segment left here on Sports Frenzy 2.0 here on June the 21st, 2023. Of course, you know what's coming. Red Foreman's Dumbasses of the Week. You don't want to miss it. I will be right back. Are you having trouble falling asleep behind the wheel of your expensive SUV? Are you finding difficulty in avoiding golf clubs thrown at you by your angry wife as you pull out of the driveway? Sign up today for the Tiger Woods Driving School, sponsored by Sports Frenzy 2.0. We'll show you how to text ladies of the night while still driving effectively in the wee hours of the morning. We'll also teach you how to ditch a suspicious backpack when you end up driving into a ditch. Check out Sports Frenzy 2.0 on Spotify, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, for updates on our latest classes, including how to curse and swear in front of uptight golf fans and their children and still be adored by millions. The Tiger Woods Driving School. It's great. All right, kids, third and final segment here, Sports Frenzy 2.0, episode 25 of 2023, taping here on June the 21st, 2023. Flying solo, I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. One quick moment of silence. I don't usually like to send out thoughts and prayers when it comes to drug overdoses. I have a heart, but at the same time, victims of crime, people whose lives are cut short due to cancer, disease, compared to somebody who selfishly ends their life through the use of substances, whether it's alcohol or drugs, I tend to be a little more callous about it. And so unfortunately, that's the case with the death of Ray Lewis III. Yes, of course, the name, you know it. Hall of Fame linebacker from the Baltimore Ravens. His son dies from an overdose. We will send along our thoughts and prayers, but again, get help. There are outlets. There are ways for you to get help. I'm not saying it's easy, but in the end, you're being selfish because you are not taking into consideration the people who love you. Yes, I know it is a problem. Yes, it's a disease. you've still got to look in the mirror, realize that you are the problem. You are the problem, not the world, not stress. You are the problem. You need to be strong enough to overcome the addiction, and that means get help. There are plenty of people out there willing to help you. And so, as always, at this point in Sports Frenzy 2.0, as Ross Geller said so eloquently on Friends, we pivot to the Red Foreman dumbasses of the week. Unfortunately, no Clint Eastwood badasses, but we have seven dumbasses for you. Too bad Dave is not here. This would be a wonderful edition of America's favorite game show, Red Foreman's Dumbass or Not. But since I am alone, you're just going to have to take my word that these are all idiots. Let's start off with an obvious one. I could have reported about this, talked about this when we were talking about NCAA basketball, but this man is so stupid. You want to talk about somebody who needs help and who's never reached out to get help, obviously, who has just selfishly, self-destructively put himself in harm's way, put other people in harm's way. Yes, I'm talking about former West Virginia basketball coach Bob Huggins, who over the years and the decades, through his time with Cincinnati and now through his time with West Virginia, he has thrown slurs out there, homophobic slurs. He has gotten in trouble constantly for DUIs, for drinking. We gave him a Red Foreman Dumbass of the Week award just a few weeks ago for going on a radio show combining religious slurs with homophobic slurs. And what does he do? Let's get liquored up and drive around, pass out with a bag of empty beer cans in the car, in the seat next to him. Again, you can be sympathetic. You want to be sympathetic, you go ahead. I'm thinking about the people he could have killed driving around like this, which he has done before. Probably dozens of times, dozens upon dozens of times, selfishly. And this man is the utmost in being an egomaniac, in being selfish, because he consistently has behaved like this. And the enablers at Cincinnati and the enablers at West Virginia turn a blind eye to the fact this guy needed a hard slap in the face. He needed to be told, your ass is done. You need to take years off, not a year, years off from coaching and get your shit together. Thank God he did not hurt anybody. But for this, for the slurs on the radio show, guaranteed, Bob Huggins right up there with the likes of Ja Morant when it comes to being a contender for the 2023 Red Foreman Dumbass of the Year. Thank God, hopefully we're finally done with him, although I'm sure we're going to see him on ESPN doing a heartfelt, regretful interview about his past mistakes. You heard it here first. And again, another idiot driving drunk. This time, the bus driver for the Pittsburgh Pirates, transporting the team from Chicago to Milwaukee. The bus is pulled over, the driver arrested for a DUI. Good Lord. Can you imagine? And I'm not trying to make light of this. Could you imagine? This is like George Costanza talking on Seinfeld about a plane crashing with an entire baseball team on it. This guy was drunk, driving an entire Major League Baseball team from Chicago to Milwaukee. What happens if he gets in a huge, massive wreck? I don't get it. I'm not trying to be sanctimonious. I'm not saying I have never gotten behind the wheel of a car with maybe one or two too many beers in me. That would be hypocritical. I would be a liar. And if anybody out there, for the most part, says that they've never done it, you're liars too. But I'm old enough and wise enough now to know that's Russian roulette. And a guy like Bob Huggins, and you would think a charter bus driver whose livelihood is to transport people from one place to another would know better. We're not talking about a 22-year-old, 23-year-old young kid who's immature and stupid. Speaking of immature and stupid, boy, we got a bunch of those for you here. Let's start off with Antonio Brown. Yes, he is back in the dumbass spotlight. Antonio Brown, former wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, had invested in a team in the National Arena League of Football, the Albany Empire. Well, guess what? The Albany Empire got kicked out of the National Arena League. Why? Because Antonio Brown didn't make the payments he was supposed to the league's front office for operational costs. Wow. Gee. Shocking beyond all belief that Antonio Brown, with his stellar record of being an upstanding citizen, never ever pouting, throwing temper tantrums, being a complete and total jackass, would pull something like this. So I don't know who's dumber, Antonio Brown or the National Arena League, for thinking that he would actually fulfill a financial promise. Conor McGregor. Again, another story that probably we could have talked about in the heart of the podcast episode this week. But it's just so pathetic. Because Conor McGregor, again, like Bob Huggins, gets away with it over and over and over again. Billy Badass thinks he can do whatever he wants. Destroy buses. Oh, but he's going to turn around and sell whiskey. Well, now he's pushed it too far. No, I'm not talking about last week when he was on our Red Foreman dumbass segment. I'm talking about this week. Last week, he punched out the Heat mascot and sent him to the emergency room. Well, we find out more details about that quote-unquote fun night for Conor McGregor. Because now he's been accused of raping a woman in a bathroom during that same Game 4 down at the Miami Heat's arena. And the story I have heard, the recounting I have heard of this is horrific. because there were other parties involved. Security, scumbags. I don't care if you're paid by Conor McGregor. If you don't have any kind of a conscience to stop a potential rape and you're blocking off the bathroom so nobody else can get in it and stop it, somebody else trying to be a good Samaritan, be a good citizen, and you're going to sit there and barricade the door and block people from getting in while Conor McGregor rapes a woman in a bathroom at an NBA arena, this is all screwed up. This is full of heinous, despicable individuals. I'm not only calling out Conor McGregor, I'm calling out the security guards. Where are your souls, you scumbags? You'll do anything for $1, include letting your client rape a woman? Oh, because it's a sacred bond. When we as security men take on a job, we do whatever the boss tells us. Bullshit! Bullshit! You deserve to be in the 7th ring of fucking Dante's hell for this. You and Conor McGregor, all of you. How dare you? Bad enough that asshole rapes a woman or allegedly rapes a woman. Yes, I know. They're saying that they were seen later on that night together. But by all the video, by all the accounts, he forcibly dragged her into the bathroom, and then these dipshit, asshole, scumbag security guards kept watch outside so nobody else could get in there and stop this crime. This could be the most reprehensible, dumbass story we have covered in years on Sports Frenzy. I hope Conor McGregor goes down for this, and I hope somehow the security guards, his security entourage, go down with him. All of them go down in flames. And the flames I'm talking about are in hell. Kadarius Toney. Yes, Kadarius Toney. First round draft pick of the New York Giants just a few years ago. Acted like a petulant, immature child in his short tenure with the New York Giants. Of course, neck tattoos right away. Red flag. Half his face pierced. Red flag. Selfish. Cares more about his rap career right off the bat, it seems like, in his rookie year than he cares about playing football for the New York Giants. So when Brian Daboll comes in, he's not putting up with it. They ship his ass out, of course, to the ultimate enabler, Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, he gets a Super Bowl ring with very little effort and very little to do with actually helping the Chiefs win said Super Bowl. Yeah, I know he had a couple catches, but nobody's talking about him ahead of Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce. But now Kadarius Toney, fine, upstanding young asshole that he is, now has come out and said he is going to wear his Super Bowl ring on his middle finger, of course, saluting the New York Giants. A big FU to the New York Giants for not believing in him and trading him. I say kudos to the Giants. I wouldn't want a piece of crap on my team like Kadarius Toney. And I tell you, this is going to backfire on the Kansas City Chiefs. But again, when you've got a head coach who enables his son and his son goes drinking at the Chiefs headquarters and severely tragically damages a young girl's life in a DUI incident, why wouldn't we expect this from Andy Reid, the Kansas City Chiefs, and their great new prize acquisition, Kadarius Toney. Hey, it was Father's Day this past weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. But obviously, the Atlanta Braves don't think so. Why? Why, Maestro, do you say that? Well, because Charlie Culberson's father, Charlie Culberson, was on the Atlanta Braves roster, and his dad was scheduled to throw out the first pitch at Sunday's game on Father's Day. Well, the Braves decided, well, we've got roster needs. So on Father's Day, they designate Charlie Culberson for assignment, basically sending him down to the minors. Dad ain't throwing out the first pitch anymore. They had to go to another dad for another player on the active roster. Kind of a douchey move, Atlanta. For that, you also are awarded a Red Foreman Dumbass of the Week. And then finally, I promised you seven dumbasses. We've covered Bob Huggins, the Pirates bus driver, Conor McGregor, Antonio Brown, the Atlanta Braves, and Kadarius Toney. This is going to be your segue into the weekend edition. Going to bring in a little bit of Hollywood celebrity, mixing it in with sports. I'm calling out Tom Hanks and Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day. Now, Billy Joe Armstrong is just a complete supreme a-hole. I've seen Green Day in concert. Very disappointing. Because Billy Joe Armstrong just wants to curse and swear and tell everybody, hey, fuck Donald Trump. Hey, there you go. Groundbreaking commentary on society, Billy Joe. You poser jackass. But Tom Hanks, I expect better from. I really do. But again, it's Hollywood. I don't know why I fall for it each and every time, thinking that anybody from Hollywood actually has a soul. Of course, we know about the A's. We talked about the fact last week their Las Vegas deal for a new stadium is getting pushed through, and it looks like it is going to clear all the major hurdles, so the A's will be moving to Las Vegas. Well, Tom Hanks and Billy Joe Armstrong are big-time A's fans, and so they don't like this. And they're saying, hey, let's boycott the A's because they're moving to Las Vegas. Well, here you go. Tom Hanks, more money than God, and Billy Joe Armstrong, probably in the top 50, more money than God. Why don't you guys get together a couple of your famous more money than God celebrity friends, form a consortium, and buy the Oakland A's and keep them in Oakland and help finance a new stadium? Why don't you do that? Oh, no. Because here you can get free publicity, acting like you're passionate fans. You're not investing anything. You're not doing anything to stop the move. You know you could. But you're phonies. You're dumbasses. You're going to get out there in front of the cameras, in front of the microphones, and talk about how passionate you are about your Oakland A's. Pool your money together along with some of your friends and buy the team and keep it in Oakland. That would be too smart. That would make too much sense, wouldn't it? Tom Hanks, Billy Joe Armstrong, you close out this episode of Sports Frenzy 2.0 as Red Foreman dumbasses. That will do it. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Next week, the Conquistador will be back. Do not forget to check out the weekend edition. This weekend, I will be reviewing Renfield, the new Queens of the Stone Age album in Times New Roman. Lots of streaming, lots of good shows starting up. Season 2 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 2 of Joe Pickett, Season 6 of Black Mirror on Netflix. I will discuss all of that stuff and more. Saturday morning, your hangover cure for whatever debauchery you partook in on Friday night. Once again, for the last time this week, I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane. You guys take care. Do not drink and drive. If you have taken anything away from me screaming and yelling over the last 15 minutes, do not drink and drive. Use your better judgment. Be better than Bob Huggins. Be better than that pinhead bus driver with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Don't put other people's lives in danger. It is selfish, and it is just wrong. We will talk to you here on the sports edition of Sports Frenzy 2.0 in 7 days. Everybody out there, take care. Dave and I will talk to you next week.